Aurangzeb ascended the throne in 1658, he appointed Shaista Khan as the governor of Deccan. He called upon Shivaji to act according to Shaista Khan's orders, and never deviate from his instructions. Shivaji had become strong and had started destroying the Bijapur, but Shaista Khan, the governor of Mughal, entered the field and rapidly took possession of the Khan camp. He took control of the plains including Pune, and started administering them. The forts were under the control of Maratha. Shaista Khan led a 2.5-month siege on Chakan Fort, which was comparatively small. It was valiantly defended by the Maratha leader Firangoji. Mughal faced huge loss before they occupied this fort. Shivaji shifted to Rajgad. On the way, Mughals attacked him, but due to the bravery of Baji Deshpande, he could make his way safely. Baji sacrificed his life in this pursuit. Shaista Khan was not exerting sufficiently. Without touching the Maratha forts, he was indulging in fruitless raids. His failure to seize Maratha forts was a blunder. He was a man of noble qualities, was kind, charitable and devoted to the welfare of people. He was residing in his mansion at Pune. He had absolutely no idea of Shivaji's intelligence and plans. Through his spies, Shivaji had gathered all possible information about Shaista Khan's camp. Shivaji had to get the Mughals out of Pune, or had to come to terms with them, but later wasn't the option for him. Shaista Khan had undervalued Shivaji, considering his resources, but his attacks were more daring than his resources would suggest. The need of the hour for Shivaji was to perform some daring act, and Shivaji made a daring raid into Shaista Khan's camp. He, accompanied by a band of 200 soldiers, marched 40 miles on foot, and arrived the spot at night. He approached a place where Khan's kitchen is situated. He broke the wall and entered in. The maid informed Shaista Khan that someone had entered his building. He left his room and entered the veranda. It was a dark night. He was attacked by Shivaji's men, but managed to escape with loss of his fingers. In the adjacent room, his son Abdul was asleep. Mistaking for Shaista Khan, Shivaji's men attacked and killed him. His head was cut off and carried away. Up till now, no king had fought against the Mughal generals in this manner, nor had shown such daring. This daring act created a profound impression about Shivaji throughout the country. His bold fight against Mughals started to impress his neighbors. After this incident, Shaista Khan was replaced by the emperor's son, Muazzam, as viceroy. It was while the change of charge was taking place, he led yet another daring achievement, the attack on the rich bursting port of Surat. Surat had a good ground fort, but had practically no defenses. On the approach of Shivaji's army, the governor fled the fort, leaving the city to the Marathas. Shivaji was willing to deal with the richest merchants, but got no response. Thus, his troops entered the city and plundered it. The booty he carried away from the city must have been about 1 crore rupees. Mughals entered Surat only after a week. Shivaji returned from Surat and left to the south by hearing about his father, Shahji's death, who had greatly influenced him. Aurangzeb was deeply embarrassed by Shivaji's sack of Surat. He called upon Bijapur to wage war against Shivaji by luring them with rebates. Khawaz Khan took charge on behalf of Bijapur. Baji Gurpade, who was Shahji's rival, assisted him. Shivaji came to know this and attacked Baji, and killed him. Unnerved by Baji's death, and strong Maratha pressure, Khawaz Khan fled from Konkan. Shivaji immediately took control of that region, and at the same time, raided Bijapur. He thus re-established his rule in the south. Shivaji started to strengthen his navy by strengthening the forts near the coast. His navy was a modest but very useful wing of his defense forces. Raja Jai Singh, a general of Mughal, an old rival of Shivaji, started his campaign against him. He didn't underestimate Shivaji. He planned to carry out a short and swift campaign to isolate Shivaji from his neighbors. He also went to set up strong guarded military posts at sensitive places to prevent Shivaji from moving out of his territory. To attack and devastate his territories, and make him surrender to Mughals. Jai Singh brilliantly conceived his campaign and equally brilliantly executed. He was successful in isolating Shivaji. All the surrounding greedy small chiefs fell into his basket. He established between forts of Purandar and Rudramal, against a tough fight by the Marathas. They created havoc everywhere, by setting fire to 50 villages and capturing people and cattle. This became the set practice of Mughal raiding parties. Jai Singh set out to siege the fort of Purandar. He led a fierce attack and faced an equally fierce defense by the Marathas. They first captured Rudramal, and started gaining control on Purandar. The Maratha garrison was now in dire trouble. Shivaji thought of ending the war, which was proving ruinous to his country. He approached Jai Singh with more than one letter, offering his cooperation in their future conflict with the Bijapur. But this was summarily rejected. Jai Singh wanted nothing but total surrender. Jai Singh allowed Shivaji to surrender the fort and leave, fearing that he might join hands with the Bijapur against Mughals. He had to surrender 23 forts, and some mahals and an amount of 40 lakhs as tribute. His son Sambhaji was made Mansabdar under Mughal. Shivaji bore this humiliation with tremendous forbearance and fortitude. This speaks of his greatness. Aurangzeb was not very enthusiastic about the treaty. He wanted Shivaji to be deprived of all his forts. But Jai Singh convinced him by posing the chances of him joining hands with Bijapur, if they go too hard on him. Jai Singh had a feeling of sympathy towards Shivaji, but as a loyal servant to the Mughals, he kept it to himself. He next marched towards Bijapur to capture them, but they were well prepared, and posed an unexpected stiff resistance. Jai Singh had to withdraw his forces. He ordered Shivaji, who was under his command, to attack Bijapur from the west and capture Panhala. One of the officers of Jai Singh, Dilar Khan, wanted very badly to kill Shivaji, as it would please their king. But Jai Singh, who had pledged his word and oath, to treat the king Shivaji with great honor, never listened to his words. Shivaji's forces failed to capture the forts of Bijapur, and some of his officers were even lured, and taken to their side. Bijapur campaign ended disastrously for Jai Singh. He had to march against them under the orders of the emperor, without sufficient artillery. And now the Emperor Aurangzeb blamed him for the failure. Adil Shah and Qutb Shah got united. This feared Jai Singh that even Shivaji might be tempted to join hands with them, and regain all the forts that he surrendered. Thus he suggested Aurangzeb to call Shivaji to his court. He used all his skill to persuade Shivaji to go to Agra. The persuasion was courteous, but firm. Make sure to subscribe, so you don't miss out on my future videos. The more subscribers I get, again the better and more content I can continue making. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.